Good day, this is Thumbs United. We're working on this supermoon. I was kind of disappointed I missed the last supermoon. That was before I got this lens. The lens and the supermoon were unrelated. Anyway, for my birthday present to myself, I bought this lens that I wanted, and it was like, it's a really cheap lens, inexpensive. I knew the quality wouldn't be that good, but it was one I've been eyeballing for a long time, and whoa, what is it doing? Okay, so it was one I've been eyeballing for a long time, but when I was since I was a kid, but it was like $300 from like 16 years ago, and anyway, so I got a gift card for my birthday for Amazon, and I was looking around. I was like, I'm gonna get something good. Like my plan was to get like a whole bunch of stuff, like really cheap, and but then I found the lens, and I was like, holy moly, they still have this lens. And I was like, this is the one from my childhood I wanted to get. And so instead of being $300, it was $80, and I was like, perfect. So I ordered the lens, and I ordered a circular polarizer. And so I did go over the gift card by like 25 cents. And I was like, that's worth it. And then so it comes, and I take pictures with it for this other project I'm working on. And it's like, oh my goodness, this was really hard, to use the lens. Not because the lens was built bad or anything, it's just the lens is a 500 millimeter, and 500 millimeters is difficult to work with. Before this lens, the largest lens I used was a 450 millimeter lens, and so that extra 50 millimeters is a world of pain. And hold on, let me put in the links. And so the extra 50 millimeters is a world of pain. Like if you look too hard at the lens, it starts vibrating and everything starts shaking. Like that's how it's essentially like using a small telescope. And so yeah, as you can imagine, like using a telescope, just breathing on it makes it shake like a ridiculous amount. But it worked out because I built a new tripod that's like heavy duty, and so yeah, I've been taking pictures with it, or taking nature photos and wildlife photos, and that went pretty well with it. The more I shot with it, the easier it got to use. It's not that I'm learning how to use the lens, it's like I'm learning this lens specifically. And I mean, it sounds like we're getting along well, but yeah, we're getting along better, me and the lens. But yeah, if I can spell schedule. Oh, success. And then the ASMR. Okay. So now back to this. So 500 millimeters was very difficult to use. And I'm glad I've been taking pictures with the lens a lot more. One of the things that's hard is you can't really tell what's in focus, because the depth of field with the telephoto lens is so shallow. So even though this lens has an aperture, the maximum aperture it can do is f8, an f-stop of f8, which is like, that's a small hole in the lens, and so it doesn't let in a lot of light. And the higher the aperture number, the wider of depth of field is, and so that's the range of things in focus. So a depth of field would be like you focus on something that's 7 feet away from you, like exactly 7 feet, and then the depth of field is actually things that are 8 feet away from you, and things that are 6 feet away from you are also in focus, even though you're focused at the 7. It's the range that things are in focus. And so the more expensive lenses have a higher, they call it the speed of a lens. The speed is much higher. And so it's actually, I don't know why they did it this way, but so an aperture of 1.2 is phenomenal, because the depth of field is so shallow that if you focus on something that's 7 feet away, 7 feet and 2 inches is already out of focus, and 6 feet and 10 feet, 6 feet and 10 inches close to you is also out of focus. So it's just a shallow, field of what's in focus. And the reason why you want that is because once you put something in focus, that's where the eye is drawn. Everything else is, blurred out. And so the irony is that even if you're, even though you're making things blurred out and putting only a small section in focus, it makes the image look even higher quality and sharper and crisper, even though you're adding more things to be out of focus. But your eyes pick up on the thing that is in focus, and the contrast makes it really well defined. And so an f1.2, an f-stop of 1.8, those are all really fast lenses, and they cost a lot more. For an f1.2, you can pay like $200 $300 for a 50 millimeter, which is kind of the most inexpensive lens. It's like the default portrait lens. But if you go up to like 80 millimeter, which is more telephoto, more zoomed in, and you get an f-stop of 1.2, which is harder. The more telephoto, the higher the millimeter of the lens, the more difficult it is to build them with a fast aperture of like 1 point. So as you get more and more higher up in the telephoto range, like 80 millimeters you can get at 1.2 still, but then you get up to a millimeter of like 100, and the best aperture you can get is like an f4, and like that's thousands of dollars. So the fact that this lens is a 500 millimeter with an f8, like that's the best it could do. That's why it's so inexpensive, because the only conditions you can really shoot in are really bright light, like sunny day. I can't, even if it's a sunny day, I can't always use the circular polarizer. And what the polarizer does is it kind of cuts down on rogue light. So light that comes in at different angles from the lens, it only accepts light that goes straight into the lens. And so what that means is it will cut down on haze in the atmosphere. It will cut down on reflections in water or glass, all reflections. And it makes the overall image clearer and you can see farther, and it's really good for telephoto lenses. And like if you're taking pictures of like jewelry and stuff and you don't want so much glare from the highlights, you can use the circular polarizer for that. And then, so this moonshot, get it, moonshot. This moonshot, this is 1,000 millimeters lens. It's the same 500 millimeter lens, but the kit that came with it, and it was a big kit. It came with the tele-converter, which does exactly what it sounds like. It converts the millimeter of the lens, and so it's a 2 times tele-converter, which means it makes whatever lens you put on it double the focal length. So it took the 500 millimeter and now it's shooting at 1,000 millimeters. It's not that great to use teleconverters. Lenses have an optical resolution, so like the digital cameras and film, the film has specific resolution, and then digital cameras have their megapixel resolution. But lenses have their own resolution as well, the optical resolution, and so the higher, essentially the more expensive the lens, the better the optical resolution. And so you really have to know which lenses are good and which companies you trust. But usually if the lens is inexpensive, the quality's not that great. And so the advantage of a higher quality lens is you can edit the photo a little bit more without getting visual defects and abrasions. And so what that is that if you take a picture of something that's like high contrast, like let's say a white flag against something that's black, no, let's do it the other way, a black flag against like a cloud. Inexpensive lenses, when you take that picture, there will be a prism effect around the black flag from the high contrast, and so the higher end the lens, the less defects in the image you get, and so that abrasion goes away. So these are star photos. Now I'm just playing around with different ISO levels. And so this is the 50 millimeter lens, and then going back. So this is the moon from where I was shooting. So this is 50 millimeters, this image. And this is 1,000, so you can see, the difference in lens angle. Okay, so now we're going to develop. Developers. So we don't have that many. We have 13 images. Dude, oh, and I was looking this up. I didn't even know that the full moon was happening. The last time I saw the moon, it was like, I don't know. I thought it was waning, but it turned out it was waxing. Let's see. And so my mom emailed me this article and was like, oh, the supermoon's coming. And I actually didn't read the article right away. I was taking out the trash today and I said, that moon is enormous, I'm going to take a picture. And then I read the article and I was like, oh my goodness, it's a supermoon. And so there's going to be 3 supermoons this year. And this is the second supermoon. So we're just gonna see what we can. So like with the fill light, you can see it's so dark. I was shooting at ISO of 100, which is like phenomenal for shooting at night. Like the moon is really bright, and then yeah, it's at 200th of a second. So that's like shooting outside in sunlight. Make it look like a dirty moon. Dirty moon. Okay, and then we're going. There was something else like flash, and it looked decent. Not shade. Not cloudy. So I think okay. And there we go. Well, and that will be our so we're gonna apply the white balance to everything. Where is the sync settings? I didn't select everything. That's why it's getting angry. Okay, so now they all have that custom white balance I did, which saves me time for so right now this is 500 millimeters. You can see it's kind of noisy. This is the abrasion I was talking about over here, and I think you can kind of Photoshop it out, but that's what I expected from a lens that was, you know, $80. And so I shot these really underexposed on purpose because I wanted to get detail on the things that were really bright. And so if you take a darker image, the things that are brighter are darker and more in range. And with digital, if something's too bright, you just lose all the detail in it. But if things are too dark, you can always make them brighter to a degree. So that's why and that's one of the reasons why I always shoot. A good rule of thumb for digital is to shoot either a full stop or a half stop darker than what your camera is telling you to shoot, because you can always lighten it up, and you, for whatever reason, the way camera's meter. They always kind of make things a little bit too bright, in my opinion. And so this photo is 1,000 millimeters. So we're gonna zoom in a second. So it's a little noisy. I don't know, but we kind of got rid of the abrasion that was here by making it so high contrast. This is an ISO of 200. Taking that, I think it says 500th of a second. You can see it's kind of, image is noisy a little bit. The higher the ISO, the more grain there is in the image. I'm just playing around with this a little bit. Having some fun. And there we go. And the reason why it's okay now we have so many kind of similar shots is I'm playing with the amount of contrast, so they're all going to be different. Like that one, that looks like a planet that exploded. Kaboom! And this one's kind of higher range. Okay, so now we have something else entirely. This is just 50 millimeters. And so that's the moon. That's how bright it really is in the sky. Kind of the worst time to take photos of the stars is when the moon is full. Do. So we have these stars. That looks like that's all we're going to be able to get out. But then these stars were at the other side. This looks like it's Orion's belt. So we don't have to worry about the moon's light getting in the way. So we can bring out even more stars. See, we have all these. And what I've learned is the easiest way to take pictures of the stars is you focus on the moon, and then once the moon is on focus, you don't touch the lens, but you just, aim your camera at the stars you kind of want to see, and then your star photos will be in focus. It is extremely difficult to try to focus on a star and then with your eyes or with the viewfinder or the LCD live view. There we go. So not a really healthy image, but a lot of stars. I took pictures of the lunar eclipse in 2010, and it was so difficult to get the stars in focus. And the lunar eclipse lasted for like 15-20 minutes, and I did get some good photos, but let's start over with this one. I'm trying to keep some of the blue. I just have it be dark blue. But the reason why I want it, as dark as possible is because it's really noisy. So the darker it is, the less bright noise there is, but the stars come out better. And we're almost done with this. Okay. So that is that. This is the super snow moon. February. What is today? 18th. 2019. So we just look through. So this higher contrast, very low contrast. Stars, more stars. Actually, you know what? Some of these don't look edited well. So we're gonna go through and take what we learned from the other photos and apply it to this one. There we go. Completely skipped over this one. There we go. That's actually pretty nice. Okay, so this is done. Hopefully. I don't know how I skipped over those last ones. So I'll start back at the top. So this is 500 millimeters. Kind of low contrast, then bringing it up a little bit for the next photo. And this is 1,000 millimeters. And it's high contrast, low contrast, and then extreme high contrast. I mean, it looks like something out of Star Wars. You know, those canyons and everything. Looks like it could be the Death Star. And then low contrast again, but brighter. And then we have this is 50 millimeters. And we have some of the stars, but the moon is so bright that it overpowers everything. So then this is Orion's belt, and then other stars around it. Now we're just going to get rid of that photo. Okay. Something is happening. Okay, so it's just the previews. The previews need to be updated. I was like, we fixed this. So, they're not accurate, but when they will be exported, everything will be fine. Now, let's go. So we're done with this, with the moon and everything. So we're going to go back to the car show. The last thing we edited was 2013. So this is the photos from 2013. This is when Scion was still around. I think Toyota just got rid of Scion. They said Scion was like made for the millennials, like younger generation Toyotas. So they were like the cars you soup up and everything. And here's the the FRS, I think. It was really cool, and it was a partnership with Subaru and Toyota, and it was a good car, but with Subaru, I think it's called, I don't remember, there were two different names depending if it was Toyota Scion or Subaru, and Scion is Toyota, just like Lexus is Toyota. And then we got the 911. Oh my goodness, this is Panamera. Kind of an abomination. Okay, so now let's go to 2016. And so there's 35 photos. We'll probably be able to get to all of them tonight. Develop. Let's see, what do I want to do? We'll start off there. And I am trying to make the dark points less like actual dark. More kind of like it still gets dark, but kind of a layer of haze in the darkness. Making the darkness low contrast, but bright things and everything else is still high contrast. So we have a Mercedes-Benz. We have the Cadillac. Today I've been working on daily animation. There's some awesome things coming out. I don't think they're coming out soon, and I don't know if I'm gonna live stream them, the progress on it. But once it does come out, I'll be posting them to Twitter, and there's gonna be a whole production. It is hold on. Okay. People are trying to close down the house while I'm still here. And that is a nice blue. Infinity. Oh, anyway, back to daily animation. It's going to be released on the Thumbs United YouTube channel, and there's going to be a 3D version for 3D TVs, and there's going to be the fixed view VR eventually. There's going to be 360-degree VR, but not yet. And so I've been rendering. Originally I did a lot of like landscape work in a program called View, and then I would use Poser for my people photos, people CGI. But now I have it to the point where I can get both landscapes and people into Blender, which is what I prefer because I have more options in terms of the light engine and everything, the render engine. And yeah. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. And we're almost done with it. I had to go get some water, and my dog was like, I want to stay outside. And I was like, no, you need to come back in. So yeah, I've been busy, animating, and it's getting faster. Before it used to be so painful using multiple 3D applications, like going from Poser to Blender was okay, you could do it, but then getting landscapes from View to Blender was always difficult, not because Blender can't accept it. It is because Vue, the program, it's VUE, is so slow. To export a scene, it's like, this is going to take a lot of resources. And I'm like, okay. And so it just sits there, and it uses 10% of the processor. I have 8 cores that run at 3.8 gigahertz. It never uses more than like 15% of that. And then you might be thinking, oh, but it's using a lot of RAM. Nope. It uses like 150 megabytes of RAM. Not that much. And so it's just exporting as slow as it possibly can. And so that was... It's always a joy. Like right now I split it up so I can export the terrain and which is essentially the landscape. I exported that first, and then I exported the sky. So to export the terrain, it took like 32 hours. And then to export the sky, I've been exporting it for the past like 2 days. And it says I still have 52 hours to go. And so it's working. It's like the hours are going down. But so that's good. And I spent a lot of time working on the skybox. So it's okay that it's taking a while. It just means there's going to be more detail. And so then once that's done, then it just goes straight into Blender. And so the thing I'm trying to do with daily animation is make like entire, like I always made a scene, like a landscape scene, or I would create people, and that would be it in the 3D environment. But I'm trying to do like scenes like, okay, here's a castle in the mountains with like 13 people interacting with each other, and it's all still life. It's all going to be like photographs, CGI photographs. There's going to be no motion or animation, which is ironic because it's called daily animation. But I'm trying to build like miniature worlds, and that way I can, I can have I can have one Blender file, and it will have all the reference files, the collada, and the 3ds files, and all the image textures and everything. But it will be one project, and then I can just animate forever the camera and the different focal points, and then I submit it to render. And yeah, so it would be like 150 frames, and that each one would be an image by itself. And it's rendering at 5K, which is like 15 megapixels. And then I'll go through and then actually similar to how we do the editing of the Milwaukee project and the other projects. We're just going to edit it as though it was a photograph, with the zooming in and zooming out, but it will be, stereoscopic. So there will be a 3D version on YouTube, and that's going to the Thumbs United on YouTube. And then there will be a just 3D for VR. So it's like watching a video with VR goggles, but instead of it being 2D, it's 3D. And I really feel that 3D is the best in VR. Like, the 3D monitors are good, but there's always something that's wrong. Like, passive glasses are the best way to view 3D, but you have to keep your head, straight. You have to be sitting in the right spot for it to work, and you have to be a certain distance away from your monitor or TV with passive. And then active shutters, you have more freedom. You can sit to the side of the screen, you can sit in front, but then the glasses run on batteries, which is terrible, and you lose a lot of detail with passive because it's flickering on and off, and that gives you migraines. It makes your eyes tired because they're like constantly trying to focus, but they can't figure out why they can't. And so I recommend passive glasses, but with the 3D that I release, you can go and get an $8 VR headset for your smartphone and then watch the videos in there. And so Flotations has the 3D VR. So does Live to Tape. And so now Thumbs United is going to get that as well on YouTube. Okay, so we're like almost done. Tomorrow's Tuesday. Is that even right? Okay, so tomorrow we're doing Mass Effect. And the Mass Effect Let's Play continues. Mass Effecting across the universe. And I'm not saying we're gonna 100% the game, because that doesn't interest me. But we're gonna do as many side quests as we can. And like, we did a lot on EOS yesterday. And like, that game has a ton of side missions. It's ridiculous. Like, I played through the game, played maybe 30 hours. And then I played it halfway through. And then I started over for this Let's Play, this live stream, and oh my goodness, there are things that are happening that I never even came across in my first playthrough, and I was like, I thought I explored a lot, and I was like, where is all this story stuff coming from? Do. So So more Mass Effect tomorrow. Creative Wednesday. We will still be editing the car project. We're getting close to finishing with the photos, which is primarily what we'll be using for the for this series. So we're gonna finish this 2016 Detroit Auto Show. Then we're gonna go to 2019. This year's auto show, and then we have the Golden Memories, and that's it. And then we can start animating. No, first we have to create the project and everything and organize, which takes a long time, but we'll eventually start animating the photos. This is Z06. It's not really a good photo. I have the Alfa Romeo. The other one was not a good photo taken by me. No, I'm saying it was my fault it wasn't that good. There we go. And last one, the Fiat. So I want to thank everyone for coming out. Wednesday is Creative Wednesday, and then Friday. My times are going to be a little bit different this week. I am going to be reviewing the Oscars, the Oscar movies for Best Picture, and so that starts this week. And so then I'm going to watch them, write the reviews, and then I will be publishing to Photations under the Master of Art, the old Master of Art thoughts. And then yeah, but we're definitely going to do more car project for Wednesday and Friday, and then Tuesday and Thursday is Mass Effect. So I want to thank everyone for coming out. It's been real, and see everyone tomorrow for Mass Effect. Bye-bye.